we have got to talk about his celebration over the radio. George Russell said, "Yabba dabba doo" over the radio. I just think they need to just strip him of everything here. Like, he does not deserve this win anymore. Yabba dabba doo. George, are you okay, mate? Hello and welcome back to the Fast and the Curious. This is our debrief from the Austrian Grand Prix. I'm Betty Glover, still in Australia, still down under, covering the Euros, alongside our paddock princess, Christian Hugill.
Paddock princess, I like. And the accent's getting better. That's
Is it?
Yeah, that was a good down under. That was, you can tell you've been out there a while now. Hello.
I've been working on it.
And it shows. Well done, mate. Hello, I'm Christian Hugill, as always in the F1 podcast grotto. Still no Greg for this week. He is on his way back as we are recording this from Glastonbury. And a quick shout out to Jamie, who messages to ask Greg if he enjoyed his mac and cheese. Apparently, Jamie and Greg had a lovely little F1 chat in the line for mac and cheese at Glastonbury, so that's lovely. We've not heard back from Greg yet, but we will make sure that we do get a mac and cheese review from Jamie, or for Jamie.
I've seen these pictures of Greg just all over social media. Like, I saw him on someone's shoulders. I've seen him like screaming in crowds. Like, he looks like he's having a very good time.
He looks like he's had a lovely time, which we love to see. And we did say at the end of our last episode, the next time you hear from us will be at Silverstone. We slightly forgot about the Austrian Grand Prix debrief. We always do a debrief, and we can't ignore the race that just happened, can we? What a race! The loudest I've screamed watching a Formula One race for a long time, Betty Glover.
We just love the drama. I was getting ready to go on air to host England against Slovakia in Australia. And I was working with a pundit that used to be a Denmark keeper, Thomas Sorensen, who loves Formula One. So we were...
Didn't he used to play for Aston Villa?
Yeah, Aston Villa.
Does he love F1?
Loves F1. And we were sat there watching it on his phone, in like literally about to go on air, and we couldn't turn it off. We were like, oh my God, what's happened? And we were like, everyone was like, you're supposed to be prepping for England, Slovakia. And we were like, no, I can't take my eyes off this. This is unbelievable.
Oh, we should get him on.
I know we should get him on, shouldn't we?
I'd love to get Thomas Sorensen on. He's a great keeper.
I'll let him know, Christian. I'll let him know. I think he'd love to come on.
Oh, I'd love to get Thomas Sorensen on. Great keeper. Anyway, right, should we get into it?
Yeah, I think we need to get into what happened. A huge weekend, by the way, for the George Russell community notice board. The bunting is going to be out. The cakes are going to be out. The Victoria sponges, because he looks like a Victoria sponge kind of guy, doesn't he? Like the balloons.
It's essentially British, yeah.
Yes, they're gonna love it. So George picked up his first win, and Mercedes' first win since the 2022 Brazilian Grand Prix. We'll get onto his celebration in a bit, because I really need to address that. Oscar Piastri finished second. He was pretty frustrated, wasn't he? And then Carlos Sainz took that last spot on the podium. But this is really one of those races where the podium does not tell you the story of the race at all. For the most part, it seemed like it was going to be pretty predictable. We sort of knew what was going to happen. We were like, yeah, we've seen this before, until it all went off. We got into the final round of the pit stops, and then it all changed, and it went off, Christian, didn't it?
Yeah, and do you know what? I said to myself, as soon as Max had the slow stop, and that, 7-second gap went down to a 1-second gap, and then all of a sudden it became obvious that Lando had the pace. And you just saw for me a sign that Max didn't want to give this race win up. In fact, I said it, I was watching the race on my own. I said it out loud to myself. I said, these two are going to come together. You could just see it. And even Carlos Sainz said it in the cool down room. Carlos said that was going to happen.
Yeah.
But after the first stint, you think, how's Max going to lose this race? After the first corner, you think, how's Max going to lose this race? He's got his traditional perfect start. He always gets off the line so well. He scampers off into the lead. And how many times have I said, everything's got to go perfect in Formula One to win a race? And they made it look too easy last year.
Yeah, it was mad, wasn't it? It was mad. And you had Lando breathing down his neck. We had a bit of a battle between the two, and then it all sort of went wrong. What happened to make Lando Norris and Max Verstappen crash?
We've got to go into a little bit of racing ethics here. And these guys, you've got to remember, we do take the dangerousness of the sport for granted, I think. You're braking from 170, 180 down to such a slow speed. It's huge G-forces. And that's why in Formula One there's a bit of it used to be a sort of bit of an unwritten rule, but it became a written rule that you can't move under braking. So you need to give your competitor who you're battling with a car's width. You pick which side of the track you're going to defend on. You brake, and once you've braked, you sort of stay where you're going, if that makes sense. What you can't do is start to brake, then move, because simply that's too late for your opponent to move, and you're going to get an almighty crash. But we started to see in those first couple of moves, Max, depending on your view of it, was either moving under braking or he was moving the tiniest bit before braking. And that's where you heard Lando go on the radio and say, he can't do that. This is dangerous. I thought we weren't seeing this as much. I'm not letting you pass me, and I'm willing to crash if that's what it takes. But those first couple of moves where Lando was on the radio, and I said out loud to myself, this is going to end in tears, that was a sign that we'd not moved past. This was old school Max back out to play.
Do you think this is because he was under pressure? Like Red Bull made an uncharacteristic little bit of a mistake in the pit stop for whatever reason. And then, Lando said Max's driving was reckless and a little bit desperate. And that probably sums it up, doesn't it?
Yes, to answer your question, yes, I think that's why we have seen it. But if you go to the 2022 season, where all of a sudden the intensity of the 2021 battle with Lewis has gone, and in the first half of 2022, Charles Leclerc looked like a genuine title contender for Max, and I thought that was the turning point for Max Verstappen. I thought from 2022 we saw a much more respectful Max in his battle with Charles. Obviously, he didn't need to do much in the second half of that season. It fell away. And then in 2023, it was so obvious that Max was going to win that even when he was in wheel-to-wheel combat, Max could afford to give a bit of leeway because his championship's never in doubt. And by the way, he still can afford to give a bit of leeway. He's still, whatever it is now, 80 points ahead.
I think that was Lando's frustration, wasn't it? Because he's like, this is, if you lost this race, it wouldn't mean that you wouldn't be winning the championship still.
Max in the past has had this attitude of, you're either, we're going to crash, or you're not going to overtake me. Either we crash or you stay behind me. It was like we saw that there, and so I feel desperately sorry for Lando Norris because he's only won one Grand Prix. He will win many more, but he will forever look back at the 2024 Austrian Grand Prix as a race he could have and should have won. For me, Max has robbed Lando of a race win there.
Yeah, just on that point, Tallulah messaged us and she said, is there a chance that this isn't deliberate from Max and he's just braking later than everyone expects because he's Max Verstappen and has a different style?
Tallulah's got a really good point there. To an extent, that's the case. Because I don't think, I could be wrong, I don't think Max is in his head going, I'm going to be dangerous. But I think the red mist comes down a little bit. You know your braking point by that point of the race, by that corner. You know your braking point. So I don't think it's quite what Tallulah says in terms of, I just brake later than everyone else. But I equally would be surprised with Max if he's going out to deliberately be dangerous. He is an intense, on-the-edge driving style, and that's where I sort of see what Tallulah's coming from.
Yeah, aggressive driving style.
Aggressive driving style. So I think in his mind, he's racing hard.
Well, one of the things that I think makes this even more interesting is the relationship that Max Verstappen and Lando Norris have. We all know that they're quite good friends off the track. They like to go and play paddle together. So a lot of people are asking the question, is this going to affect their friendship? And it's interesting what you're saying there, because Lando, after this, when he was doing his media rounds, said it basically depends on what Max says. If he said he did nothing wrong, then I'm going to lose a lot of respect for him. And it's so interesting to see where they go from here. Do you think that they can still be friends off the track after this? Because Lando Norris, like you were saying, was heartbroken afterwards. He's going to look back at this as, a massive loss for him.
Oh, it's what I just said. He will always view this as a race lost, and that will hurt more now than it will hurt at the end of his career when he's undoubtedly won more Grand Prix. But now when he's only won one and he knows he had the pace, that will hurt. And it's his friend's illegal driving, the FIA gave him a 10-second penalty, that's taken that away from him. So that will hurt a lot. You often hear Martin Brundle say in commentary, these guys can't be friends. I've always disagreed with that with Martin to an extent there, because I think this modern generation of racing driver have proved you can. There are lots of good friendships up and down the grids. So I think in modern day, you never used to see it in the past, and that's where Martin's right. Nowadays, I think they've proved with a little bit more modern man attitude that they can be friends. I think there's an exception to this, and I think the exception is when you're fighting in an intense world championship. We are going to see for the rest of this season. I don't think Lando will win the World Championship because I think Max has already got a big enough buffer. But if this season had started in Miami, we'd have seen a Max Verstappen, Lando Norris battle for the title. And I think look back to Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg in their battles. They were very close friends, and that friendship did not survive. Apparently they've rekindled it since, but in the on-track situation, it did not survive them battling for a world championship so intensely. I don't see how Max and Lando stay friends when they're battling each other this intensely, personally.
It must be so difficult, though, because they spend so much of their lives, on the road, traveling, they're in different countries with each other, that having that friendship must make everything a lot easier and a lot nicer. But yeah, I agree. How are you supposed to keep a friendship going when something like this is happening and you're having to battle with that person? I would love to be a fly on the wall.
Can I just say, though, before we move on from this battle at the front, we started this podcast last year, and I know a lot of our listeners also started with Formula One last year. Not all of them. It's lovely for me to be doing this podcast this year in a year that is more like, this is Formula One.
Yeah.
Last year was unprecedented, historic levels of dominance where this sort of thing didn't tend to happen. And actually, this is Formula One. This is why I love it.
It's the drama, Mick. We love it.
We love it.
So all of that drama left that door wide open for George Russell to cruise through and take the win. Now, some might say that he didn't necessarily earn it, but in his defense, you've got to be in the right place at the right time. You've got to keep your head. You've got to see the opportunity, and you've got to take your chance. And he has previously let big chances like that slip away, hasn't he? But he didn't. And it was a decent drive all around from him, wasn't it?
You've got to put yourself in the right place at the right time. George Russell earned that victory because he was the best of the rest. He earned that win because he had a good qualifying, he had a good race, he stayed out of trouble. He didn't do what Lewis did and got a scrappy penalty for going over the white line.
Yeah.
George put himself in the right place at the right time. And in motorsport, stuff like this happens all the time. Doesn't happen all the time in F1, but this happens. And George put himself in the right place at the right time. And do you know who should have been winning that race? Is Sergio Perez.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Sergio is in theory driving the best car. Well, he was nowhere near. He finished 7th. A hammer blow for Sergio Perez this weekend, because these are the races that Red Bull are looking at to think, in an instant where our number one driver is battling with another team that gets taken out, we need our number two there. Sergio was nowhere near. So Sergio should have won that race.
Yeah.
Oscar could have won that race because, again, McLaren is the first/second quickest car. He would have won that race if it wasn't for the penalty, and it was heartbreaking to
Yeah.
see him realise that in the cool-down room.
Oscar is going to win a Grand Prix and he's going to win loads in this career. We know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Can we talk about George Russell though?
Hmm.
We have got to talk about his celebration over the radio. George Russell said "yabba dabba doo" over the radio. I just think they need to just strip him of everything here. Like, he does not deserve this win anymore. Yabba dabba doo. George, are you okay, mate?
I'm fascinated by the sheer sporting euphoria that, like, I tell you what, for example, when England scored their winner, I could not believe it. And you had that moment of sporting euphoria where you cheer, and I just let out this weird noise.
Yeah.
When you cross the line, I'm fascinated by that moment of sporting euphoria being yabba dabba doo.
What possesses you to go yabba dabba doo? Like, what even is that? B, why are you not just cheering like a normal person? Like, what?
Well, I don't think he should be stripped of the win. I love life's characters, and George is a character, so and it gives us something to talk about. So I'm all for it, George. You do you. You be you. But really. I don't know anyone else in my life who references the Flintstones. They're sort of not really on anymore.
All the young F1 fans watching were probably like, "What is that?"
Yeah, an unbelievably strange celebration. But I'm really pleased for George because he has, by his own admission, made too many mistakes. Last year was the worst year of his career, where Lewis got the better of him. Lewis finished with considerably more points than George. And George this year has really recovered well. And yes, there's been a couple more mistakes, but he's been much more consistent this year. Not his first podium. He had the podium in Canada. And you look at, fourth in Spain, fifth in Bahrain, fifth in Monaco, sixth in China, sixth in Saudi. You'll have to excuse me. My hay fever's really not good this morning, and it's really getting to my voice, so I'm croaking through. But he deserves these levels of consistency. They may, on paper, fifth, sixth, they may not look spectacular results, but he's actually been getting the most he can out of that Mercedes this year, and he deserves credit for that. And if you continue when you're in a car that's sort of third quickest, if you continue to get the best out of it, you'll pick up scrappy race wins and podiums when there's stuff at the front. It happens. It's the equivalent of a poacher's goal. It's the equivalent of the Harry Kane, Jamie Vardy figures in football being praised for getting poacher's goals. Well, no, you put yourself in the right place at the right time. These things don't happen through coincidence. So well done to George.
Sticking with Mercedes then, Lewis Hamilton came fourth. Do you think that this is a sign that Mercedes are actually back in the mix? They're back up there. They could maybe get a few more podiums.
Mercedes have started to understand the car. What was getting to me with Mercedes before is they'd say, we think we've made a step forward, and they just wouldn't. For an elite organisation, a multiple world championship winning organisation like Mercedes, they've understood this rule set far too late, and that's why they lag behind. And we've only got a season and a half left of this rule set. But finally, what we're seeing now is when they come into a race weekend and bring upgrades, the upgrades work. So the fact they are able to pick up this race win, because this time last year, that race win would probably have gone to an Aston Martin. Mm-hmm. So yes, Betty, it is a sign that Mercedes are finally starting to understand the car, finally starting to take the little steps forward. And yes, as Toto himself said, we need the top two to take each other out to win. But it genuinely makes me think that certainly going into the latter half of this season and into next year, we might actually be in a position where we've got four constructors all genuinely in with a chance on certain race weekends of picking up race wins, because Mercedes seem to be on the right trajectory. Now, listen, we saw this with Ferrari, and they have then dipped. So it's not too late for another dip. We shouldn't get carried away, but it's far more encouraging for Mercedes.
Yeah, it's so exciting. Also, I hate to say this because I'm not going to be there, but Silverstone's going to be cracking, isn't it? Silverstone is so exciting just to see what happens.
I suspect it's a similar track to Spain, right? In the sense that if your car is quick in Spain, it's quick everywhere. So I'm thinking, all right, Spain's a tighter track, but there's similar levels of different types of corners to at Silverstone. So I'm making a slightly clumsy comparison, but if your car's quick in Spain, you're probably roughly going to be quick in Silverstone. And therefore, I'm expecting Red Bull and McLaren to be very similar. So Silverstone is fascinating because it's also a track where you can overtake and you can battle. It's a perfect circuit to go to in these circumstances. That will be fascinating.
Very exciting. I sort of want it to be though, because I'm not going to be that. I'm not going to be that person. No, I don't. I don't.
Vindictive woman.
It's going to be incredible. But, whilst we're talking about fighting, I think we should address the French Civil War, which is going on at the moment with Alpine. Firstly, before we get into it, did you hear Gasly when he passed Ocon going, ciao?
What do you expect? I mean, it was always a very optimistic decision to put two drivers who have historically not got on well with each other in the same team. They just about scraped through it in the first year. There was a bit of coming together, but actually, I think most would say they got on better than many expected. But now, Gasly's won. Gasly's got the contract extension. Ocon's been shown the door. They are, Alpine and the Renault group are going, we're backing Gasly for our long-term project here. Ocon's been shown the door. He knows that. If you know that with Esteban Ocon, you don't give a monkeys, do you? You are just going to be in it for yourself. The only thing I would say is you've got to be slightly careful if you're Esteban Ocon, because I would be keen to show I'm still able to play the team game because I'm trying to get a job somewhere else, because I don't believe it's guaranteed that Esteban Ocon is staying in Formula One. I think there's a good chance he'll end up at Haas. That was where, if you forced me to say, where's he going to go now? I think that's a move that makes sense. It's not been officially announced, but it's going to be Oliver Behrman in that Haas seat. Always good to have someone experienced beside a young teammate. But there's nothing to lose for Esteban. You can bicker with Pierre all you like. You're still trying to persuade yourself you've got a job, mate, or persuade other people to give you a job, is all I'd say. But they're going to bicker for the rest of the year, and it's going to be incredibly entertaining to watch.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? We love it.
It's very funny.
We've mentioned George Russell's community board quite a lot during this episode already. Is there anything that you want to sort of stick on there? Anything you want to bring up? Any rumours, any gossip, anything you've heard on the grapevine?
The only thing I'd like to bring up is I don't know what's a penalty and what's not anymore. And we saw very inconsistent stewarding this weekend. And there was a point, actually, where Martin Brundle said on the Sky commentary of the battle between Lando and Max, we need the referee here to say whether Max is going over the line. And they didn't, and they dawdled.
Yeah, sort it out.
And it's not good for the fans. We need to know what's going on. So I think the FIA, and by the way, this is not Formula One. This is the FIA. This is the sports governing body. They are giving out the penalties. I think the FIA need to have a bit of a sit down here and go, let's do a bit of a refresh of what's okay and what's not. So I'm putting a rant on the notice board, if that's all right. It's a mini rant. I've had bigger rants, but
the FIA are making their mind up. But they're not making their mind up.
They need to make their mind up more. That's an early podcast reference there, if you're a new listener to the Fast and the Curious.
On the community notice board, I've got something that we can put on there, Christian.
Right.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
So you might remember a few races ago, we were talking about the curses in F1. How Lando got his first win and he broke that curse, and what else we might like to see happening. And you became the Formula One witch, didn't you?
Yeah.
Your favourite bit of the podcast. And we turned the lights green and you did a cackle, which was incredible. The best cackle I've ever heard.
It was a good cackle, wasn't it? Credit to me. I cackled well, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was excellent. Anyway, we set a few curses that you wanted to see lifted before Silverstone. You wanted to see Logan Sargent in the top 10 or Hulkenberg on the podium. And the deal was that if neither of them happened, you'd be dressing up like a witch on stage at Silverstone.
Yeah, but the deal was you come to Silverstone and you're backing out on that. So
yeah, well, sorry.
I sort of thought it had been forgot. I genuinely thought this had been forgotten about.
No, never. We never.
I have got to retain some credibility at some stage in my career, and you lot want to dress me up as a witch for no apparent reason.
The best thing in life, right, is balance. You need balance in life. So you can have your credibility, you can be the expert, you can be the serious Formula One voice, that is absolutely fine. But then on the side, you are going to dress up as a witch and do a cackle and make everyone laugh because it is funny. So neither of those things happen. So are you going to wear a witch's outfit on the stage?
I'll do a cackle.
I think you should.
A cackle. Jimmy's just said in my ear, a cackle on the driver's in stage. The driver's in stage is the one to do it in the smaller of the stage shows.
Yeah.
I will at the least do a cackle. Okay, fine. I'll at least do a cackle. The suit, you'll have to turn up to Silverstone to find out.
Good for you, Christian. I'm proud of you.
Let me run through, by the way, for when you can see us at Silverstone. The drivers in stage, 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. on the Friday, is a live Q&A, ask us anything. That's where if the witch thing happens, it'll be there. The Saturday, 4:05 p.m. to 4:45 p.m. is our F1 qualifying debrief with Bernie Collins on the main stage.
Oh, it's going to be so good.
And on Sunday the 7th, 9:15 to 9:50 on the main stage. That's the James Vowles morning briefing. They are the three elements where you can see us. I am also going to be on the main stage at various points of the weekend as Silverstone's main stage presenter on Friday to Sunday. That is when you can see us this weekend coming. You won't see Betty Glover because, unfortunately, she'll still be down under covering an inferior sport.
An inferior sport.
Which, after the England match last night, you cannot deny that's to be the case. Because, yes, we won, but we were so terribly boring.
It did bring the drama in the end. For the James Vowles chat on stage, if you and Greg aren't sat there in a full-blown suit, dressed exactly like him.
He doesn't wear a suit. He wears a shirt, doesn't he?
He wears, shirt and trousers. Smart man.
I think I've got a shirt planned genuinely anyway for my race day. I'm going smart for race day. I bought a new shirt, so that's fine.
Yeah. Great, good for you.
No, we can sort that. Before we go, and I get on with packing for Silverstone, which is written in the script in front of me, but is also genuinely what I will be starting doing as soon as this podcast finished. Betty, I want to check, are you using NordVPN in Australia?
Is that even a question, Christian? You know I'm using NordVPN in Australia. When I say it has literally changed my life, I'm not joking. It has allowed me to do so much. Obviously, catch up on Formula One. I've changed my virtual location so that I can watch Formula One whilst I'm out here, but I also listen to all sorts on football, so it's how I get my research done. I listen to like radio stations in the UK whilst I'm out here in Australia.
Which one
has changed my life? Well, BBC 5 Live.
Oh, good. I thought you were going to say Radio 1 because Greg. So I was going to be like, nah, pick a different one.
Yeah, no, sorry, Greg. That wouldn't help me with my football analysis research, would it? But honestly, it has changed my life. I love it. I'm obsessed.
Yeah, but what you've missed is that as well as all of that, your private data, like your bank details and passwords, have been kept safe while you've been using public Wi-Fi. And I have seen you have a little coffee in some cafes and been on the Wi-Fi. All your details have been kept safe.
I know. Oh, isn't that amazing? A little coffee, by the way. I'm having about 10 a day just to get me through these 6 weeks.
We've got a lot in common. We love a coffee and we love food.
And we love NordVPN.
And we love NordVPN.
Coffee, food and NordVPN.
We love NordVPN. Well, do you know what we also love is their threat protection feature? And you do say this a lot. You often say to me, I just love the threat protection feature. Because that means you're protected from viruses, malicious malware, and phishing sites whenever you are online.
So, to get the best discount on your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/TFATC. Our link will also give you an extra 4 months on the 2-year plan, and there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. No risk at all. The link is in the description of this episode. Run, don't walk. Download it.
What a genuinely thrilling end to the Austrian Grand Prix that sets up drama that is going to be running and running and running. And the next time you hear from the Fast and the Curious, it will be at Silverstone. We're going to be uploading podcasts throughout the weekend. We're going to be, after the weekend, putting the stage shows we do live on the YouTube channel so you can watch them. Our plan is to bring people who are not going, like your good self, Betty, as close to the action as we possibly can. So we will look forward to speaking to you at Silverstone. Betty, we will miss you, but we'll try and check in with you over the weekend, and we will make sure your presence is felt. Don't worry about that.
Aw, thanks, guys. Yeah, I'm very gutted not to be there, but I am deep in Euros coverage at the moment in Australia. So there we go. You can't do it all, can you, guys? As much as I'd like to. I'd like to have Doctor Who's TARDIS and be able to do both, but Such is life. Anyway,
Oh, that would have been handy. Yeah. Right, Betty, we'll speak to you over the weekend at some point if we possibly can. If not, we'll catch up afterwards. We'll be back with more from the Fast and the Curious from Silverstone. If you haven't subscribed, do, because it's not going to be our usual schedule of like a preview episode on a Friday, then the post race on a Sunday or Monday. Subscribe, because episodes could pop up at any point over Silverstone weekend, and you wouldn't want to miss it, would you? So subscribe to the podcast, follow us on YouTube as well, and we'll be back from Silverstone very soon. Bye for now.
bye guys.